My name's Michael O'Reilly, and I am from Kelowna, BC originally. So I'll start off about 5 years ago. I ended up in East Vancouver. I knew I had to get out of there because I was a walking zombie, and my dad was dying of lung cancer in Port Alberni. So I packed up my crap, cold turkeyed it, came out to Port Alberni, cleaned up, got back in touch with my dad before he passed, and went back to school. Started my life off good, got my heavy equipment tickets, went back to school, and things were going well for a while. And I was working for a year up north at Site C. I lost my ID and couldn't fly it back up north, so the funds and the bank, the savings all ran out real quick, and I was back to square one with the addiction and the homelessness, right? And I ended up coming back down to Surrey to clean up. And after I cleaned up in Surrey for a bit, I decided to come back out to the island of Port Alberni because my stepmom was still there, and I still knew there was a problem with the addiction. And I cleaned up there last time and had the best luck. And I got out there, and it was right when the COVID was hitting, and I relapsed after being 3 months at a recovery house. They wouldn't let me back in. Like, usually it's a 3-strike rule, but because of the COVID thing, they were so freaked out about it that I might have it from being out for that night, and it was all over the news. They wouldn't let me back in, so I was out in the street with nothing again, right? Like, just, I didn't have nowhere to go, shelter, nothing, right? I ended up somehow making it through like a couple weeks in Port Alberni and made it to Nanaimo, right? Got to a bigger hub, thought there'd be more resources, but the COVID was everywhere, right? There was no mental health, no meetings, no recovery. So yeah, my addiction just got further and further downhill, and just kept on going from town to town, and ended up here in Victoria. That was rough for a bit, and how I ended up here on Christmas, or it was Boxing Day, I think it was. I had a tent set up on Pandora, and somehow I made it through to about 2 o'clock in the afternoon before the bylaw came and tore down my tent. Yeah, I'd pack up and move, and it was just a really exhausting way of living life, right? And the police said to me that if I got into the van, the paddy wagon with my stuff, they would bring me to a tent city, and I could unpack my stuff and everything would be fine, right? So I was like, okay, I didn't even know about this place at that point. So they drove me down to here, and they dropped me off with my stuff, and they didn't know what I was supposed to do, so I just opened the tent and got into it. And
well, you're one of those people.
I was one of those stragglers, yeah.
You're lucky.
Yeah, very lucky, very lucky. My life's going to change a lot in the next 6 weeks with hopefully going to detox. And then my wicked worker, Katie from ABI, she's an awesome angel. She called Edgewood for me because I looked online and seen there was something about funding, like for people that can't afford it. But it was the luck of the draw because the manager from Edgewood said it was funny that Katie was calling because he just got an email from the government 40 minutes before that saying they're going to pay for 5 beds. So I might luck out and get into that, right? I really hope I get into that. But I'm so sick of the grind and the coldness and the homelessness, and we're lucky, like really, really lucky here in Canada or this area to have like the resources we have here, because like community's been so great. Like as you can see, like in the warming tent, they've dropped off so much stuff for us, and love and food, and I think it's just because of what is set up here, right? Like the way it is set up. Like I'll give it props to like having contained like this. I don't know if this is a pilot project here. Like
it should be a pilot project.
The neighbors having to deal with the property crime or the went on around here, but I think they're slowly starting to trust again. Like as you can see, the parking lot starting to fill back up, and at first it was dead. Like for the people that were going to work, they would not park here. So that's showing a sign of improvement, I think. But I don't know what the stats are on that.
Maybe talk to me about that, like the criminal element of using cannabis, because it just be. Not everybody's involved in that.
No, not at all. I don't do any of that, like ever. Like for me personally, I'm a straight like loner, right? That's just for that fact, right? I'll talk to people and be acquainted with people, and not everyone in here is like that either. Like a lot of people go out and they go shovel driveways or whatever to make money, pick pop cans, right? Not everyone's out there busting windows and breaking into houses, right? It's just few and far between of people that are really desperate, and the desperate ones usually go to jail, right? The war on drugs is such a huge fucking downer for people with addiction and homelessness, right? Because it just, that stigma too that's behind that, right? Like if you're an addict, it closes so many doors for you. Like if you're even like to get help at a hospital, right? Like when you go up to the hospital, or if you have to go there, most addicts try not to go there because they get the shittiest treatment, they get laughed at by the doctors and the nurses, people will go ahead of them with like a cut on their finger, and you're ready to lose your leg or something, right? So, and
Thankfully, some of that's changing a bit.
there's addiction medicine now that opened up at Jubilee, and that's a big change, I think, for this area, right? I think they're slowly starting to adapt like some of the programs from Vancouver that weren't around before the opiate epidemic, right? So, yeah, it's just too bad that like 5,000 people, I think I've seen in the paper the other day, are gone since the epidemic hit, right? That it took that many people to die, right?
Yeah, it's an epic failure in policy. It's killing people. It's ridiculous. Can you tell me about the Salome project?
It was a really good program for the people that were in it. And it's slowly starting to expand out of there. Like they have like not the diacylate morphine program, but like the hydromorph program popping up here in Victoria. I think now they're gonna start one. There's one in Surrey, and it's the stats on it were like for every addict that was in there was 120 grand a year, something that the government pays in taxes or whatever for like to take care of them medically, housing. And if they're in that program, it goes down to like 40,000. Life expectancy goes up, and jobs. I had a job when I was there, so yeah, my life.
And housing.
Yeah, and housing. My life improved that much. So
what is your blue sky?
my family again, which I'm too chicken shit to call. So I got my worker Katie to call, which by the way, Katie, thank you so much for doing that. I call my sisters and tell them I love them. Have my sisters back in my life and have them, me being clean around them, and have my son back in my life, and yeah, just be happy with my family. That would be my blue sky. My mom and my dad were both addicts, but they were functioning addicts. My mom was an alcoholic, which eventually killed her when I was like 26 or 27. And my dad was an opiate. Like he took his pills all his life, and that killed him eventually when he was 67. So he got a good run out of it. But yeah, I grew up with addiction throughout my whole life, but it was over-the-counter addiction, right? And it was quite traumatizing for all four of us kids growing up seeing that, right? But we powered through it just because we had each other, and that was a big part of why I still want to go on in life and still want to do better, is because of my family, right? My sisters and my brothers, yeah, they mean everything to me, and yeah, they went through everything that I did, but I just somehow found different comforts and different ways of dealing with my trauma, and they dealt with it a little bit better than I did. Yeah. But for example, I had to deal with my mom taking my Ritalin when I was a kid, and like putting me between me and my dad, like not telling my dad about her taking my pills when I was a kid. Like that was a big part of what I remember that would cause a lot of the arguments, because my dad was always asking me, did your mom take your pills? And I don't want to start an argument or a fight, right? And then if I don't get my meds, I'm not doing good in school, right? So that was probably one of the most traumatizing things growing up. And then
Were your other siblings on Ritalin?
No. For some reason, I got it all. I got the addiction, the spaz, the ADHD,
the fact that you had ADHD, but your other siblings didn't, and what role that played and how your life played out, right?
Dr. Gavin Mate,
Yeah.
You know what he says about ADHD and addiction, right? Like he thinks the correlation between them is huge, right? And trauma, obviously, right? Trauma is the number one thing with addiction, and yeah, I think the ADHD had a huge thing to do, big part of my life, right?
Have you read his book, Scattered Minds?
That's funny. That's two parts of why I can't read a book. I got a scattered mind. I can't sit there long enough to read a book. If it was a documentary on it, I could watch it, but I just can't sit there to read. I don't have the patience to do that. For the impulsiveness, that's a huge part of addiction, right? Like especially when you're going in recovery, to control that impulsiveness, not to go pick up and use again.
Did someone just say?
Keep breathing, yeah.
Is someone OD?
Yeah, I think so. Sounds like it. Happens quite a bit, unfortunately, around here, but luckily the people are quick on the ball, and as you see how quick the fire trucks show up, they're pretty used to it with the opiate epidemic. appreciate whatever you guys are doing and fighting for us and spreading the word and making it legible for people instead of like making it scary.
Okay, well, we're cheering you on.
Thank you.